Hey, it's Kathleen Jasper, and today I'm going to be talking about the leadership interview, specifically some tips you can use when answering some of those complex questions you get asked in the leadership interview process. It can be a very daunting situation, but with these little tweaks and adjustments, you can have a successful interview. Let's get started. First, let me say that the assistant principal leadership interview or principal leadership interview can be very nerve-wracking. I remember my own experience during this time, and I was nervous, and I was sweating the whole thing. I had a lot riding on this. I really wanted the position, and it's hard, but I learned some things along the way, even by interviewing other leaders later in my career, that will help you kind of reduce your anxiety and help you answer those complex questions that the leadership team or whoever is interviewing might ask. So one of the things that is very helpful is to try to contain your answers in some sort of a formula. Now you have to be careful. You don't want to sound like a robot and you don't want to sound too formulaic. It needs to be more conversational. It needs to be authentic. So you want to, practice this in the mirror, in your car, maybe talk about it out loud when no one's around, but try to get into a more conversational tone. But the acronym I use when answering questions in these types of interviews is the STAR method. The STAR method stands for situation, task, action, result. Now, again, you don't want to be sitting there going, the situation was, the task was, my action was, the result was, because it just becomes too rehearsed and it's not going to come off really well. But if in your head, you can start to think of this acronym when you're thinking about the things you're going to talk about, this will help. So let me give you a couple of examples. I'm going to use one that is professional development related, and I'm going to use another that is discipline related, because you're going to get questions on all kinds of things, but I'm just going to use these two because they're kind of on both ends of the spectrum when it comes to leadership. So let's say you're in an interview and you get asked something about professional development or a time when you led teachers school-wide to do something. So in my experience, I was given the opportunity to start professional learning communities in my school. Now, you may already have those well established, but let's say there is a change to the professional learning communities, or something needs to happen with the PLCs in your school. All right. So in my case, the situation was, and I'm not going to say that, I'm just going to say at our school, the school I was interning at, or the school where I was a dean, or whatever the situation is, we were trying to get buy-in for a new professional learning community structure or initiative that we were implementing school-wide. Now, it's really important there, a couple things. I said school-wide. In the interview, you want to make sure that you are coming across as a building-wide or school-wide leader. You don't want to answer to your classroom. They're not looking for a teacher. They're looking for a leader. So bring it out to school-wide. So in this case, I might say, we were starting a new professional learning community initiative and we were trying to get buy-in with teachers. They were currently burnt out. They were not excited about the professional learning communities. They had a lot on their plate and they were already doing department meetings and they didn't see, the benefit of starting PLCs. So that's the situation. I just communicated that to the principal. All right. Now the next one was task. So now I'm going to say, so it was my job to kind of do some professional development, do some presentations, try to get the teachers to understand the importance of this new PLC model that we were going to implement school-wide. Again, I said school-wide, and I'm now having to lead the teachers. So that's my task. Okay. Rather than take on the whole thing myself, I decided to recruit some of the teachers who were already using PLCs and finding success in that to present to a group of teachers so that teachers could see that their colleagues were already using this model and finding success. So notice another thing I did right there. My action was that I'm going to have these other teachers present. This is teacher-led professional development. Now, I'm the leader. I'm going to work with this small group of teachers to present to the larger group of teachers, but I am delegating that out to take myself out of the equation, because what I'm looking for is buy-in, right? And teachers buy into other teachers before they buy into APs and administration. I mean, that's just the thing. So notice how I removed myself from the presentation part of it and got the help of other teachers. So here's how I would elaborate a little bit more on that. I knew, or you could say we knew, that teachers would be more receptive to their colleagues who have used this method already. And so I worked with those teachers to develop a presentation and give them the support they needed to present to the faculty. Here's another thing I just did there. I talked about how I'm going to support the group of teachers who are going to be presenting. You don't want to just delegate a task and say, good luck, guys, and walk away. You want to be there to support, all right? So there's your action. You got the teachers who are already using the PLCs, who are finding success, and you recruited them to do the presentation, and you supported them through the process. Now, you could go even further and say, we met on Mondays to go over it for a month, so that they felt comfortable presenting to the group. You could add in any of those things. If, whatever your situation, task and actions were, you can add little nuggets in there. But make sure you talk about supporting teachers, and also, that you're leading these teachers, you're meeting with them, you're talking with them and conversing with them. And now the result. So then you might say something like this. What happened was these teachers killed it. They went to the front of the auditorium. They presented their data and their evidence to their colleagues. The colleagues saw that this is something that works for their peers, and they immediately had a better reaction to this new PLC initiative. I'm so glad that I didn't try to do the presentation myself and instead got these rock star teachers to present their work in front of their peers. It was awesome. Okay, that could be one. Or it could have turned out terribly, which happens all the time. If you're an assistant principal, you know that many of the things you try to do are not received well, or they just don't work. Now, this is where resiliency comes in. All right. So let's just say it wasn't great. Whatever your result was, it didn't work. It's okay to communicate that to the team. This is why we are resilient leaders. So this is how I would frame it if it didn't work, if it was a hot mess. Well, it turns out that a couple of the teachers that I had present, they were not as comfortable in the front of the room. They got really nervous and they had a hard time communicating the data. Or I might say the faculty was asking a lot of questions that the teachers didn't have answers to, and I had to jump in a lot, which next time I would probably prepare them a little bit better for those types of questions. But the one thing I learned was that having teacher-led professional development is very beneficial, but we need to anticipate more of the questions and the follow-up that come after. Notice what I did there. I said that it sort of worked, sort of didn't work. It wasn't the best, right? But I said, what we will do better next time. That's the resiliency. I collected the data through observation. I was like, okay, this is not going well. What's happening? They're asking too many questions, right? So that's data collection. And then I learned from that and said, so next time we implement this, I'm going to make sure I prepare my presenters for follow-up questions and make sure that they know the answers to those questions or know where to go to get the answers to those questions. So notice I did the STAR: situation, task, action, result. I explained a little bit in there. It was more conversational. It was not robotic. And whether it was a good result or a bad result, I talked about how I would move forward with that information. Now let's do a discipline example. You're definitely going to get a question in the leadership interview about discipline. And some of you have a lot of experience working in discipline. Some of you did your internship as the discipline AP. Some of you have no experience in discipline, but you're going to have to pull from something. Now remember, we are leaders. So this is building wide, school wide, not in our classroom. We're not going to talk about behavior problems in the classroom. We're going to talk about behavior problems in the school. All right. So let's just say that the principal says, or the team that you're interviewing with says, tell us about a time where you had to implement new policies in discipline, or you had to work in discipline, or whatever it is. Okay. So here we go. Using the STAR. Here comes my situation. We were seeing an increase in referrals in the second semester of school, we noticed that the referral count went way up and we were wondering what was going on. Situation. That was my situation. So now here comes the task. So my principal asked me to analyze the data and have a look and see if I could find out what was going on, what made everything so different from the semester before to this semester. There's your task, right? This is a simple thing. You're not solving the discipline problem. You're just looking at some data, which is really important here. We're not trying to save education. We're entry-level administrators. So this is just a simple data analysis task, okay? So I have my situation, behavior referrals are up. My task given to me by my principal was to figure out why, okay? So the action you took. So what I did was I pulled discipline data for everything that was happening before the spike and after the spike, and I analyzed the data to see where the trends were happening. And what I noticed is that during the second semester, we had a spike in referrals after lunch in this particular group of students and in this particular couple of classrooms. Okay, so I just analyzed the data and I disaggregated the data in that situation. My action was I looked at the data last semester, this semester, and I dug down a little bit deeper and saw that it was happening after lunch and it was happening in a particular group of classrooms with a particular group of students. All right. Very good stuff. All right, now the result. Now remember, the result does not have to be a solution to all the educational issues in the world. It's a tiny little thing you're going to talk about here. So you might say, after I analyzed the data and figured out what was going on, I went to my principal and we had a discussion about it. And we realized that perhaps we needed to bring these students in and have a conversation with them and figure out what was going on. And we needed to speak to these teachers as well, because clearly these teachers needed support, either in the form of us talking to the students ourselves or in some professional development in terms of classroom management. And so we came up with a plan and we are in the process of implementing that. Notice that I don't even have an end result there, right? It's not a perfectly wrapped up in a bow, but the result of that specific action was that then I was able to meet with the principal and we were able to talk about it and come up with a plan. We're not sure how it's going to work out yet, but we have a plan in place and I'm currently working with those teachers. And they might say, well, tell me what that looks like. What's going on as you are working with those teachers? And then you might say something like, well, I want to make sure I'm there to support the teachers because that's really important. But I also want to make sure that they're using good classroom management practices so that, these excessive referrals don't happen. And so we're working out some plans for them to attend some professional development. And also I am listening to those teachers to hear what they need from us so that we can fully support them in trying to fix this behavior in the students. That's it. No big deal. And I know that I'm probably speaking a little more clearly and a little more easily than you might if you've never been an assistant principal before. But I want to make clear here that you do not have to make it this big, huge thing. Just a small task of analyzing the data and figuring out what's going on, that's leadership. And then talking with the principal and figuring out how you're going to support the teachers or support the initiative, that is school leadership. So keep it simple, but also make sure you hit the situation, the task, the action, and the result. And remember, the result does not have to be the best result in the world. And if it didn't work, make sure you tell the interview team what you learned and things you would change to make it better for next time. All right, so that's it. Good luck with your leadership interviews. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions. I wish you all well and try not to be too nervous and just keep practicing these techniques in the mirror, in your car. Talk about your accomplishments and things you've been doing in the school and try to link it to that STAR method. And I hope that you have a wonderful interview. Have a great day.